Under the bold and decisive leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is making history by breaking free from the grip of foreign dominance and reclaiming its sovereignty. The country's latest move has sent shockwaves across the global stage. Prime Minister Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo has announced the establishment of Burkina Faso's first defense industry, a monumental step toward self-reliance in military affairs. "We have made the choice to expand our defense sector," declared Ouedraogo, emphasizing that the Burkinabe army possesses the expertise to maintain its military equipment. While this announcement may not have come as a complete surprise, the speed at which Captain Traoré is transforming Burkina Faso is astonishing. Unlike leaders who make empty promises, Traoré is a man of action. If history is any guide, Burkina Faso will soon begin producing its own weapons, laying the foundation for true military independence. For far too long, African nations have been forced to depend on foreign powers that dictate the terms of their survival, often leaving them at the mercy of arms embargoes when they refuse to submit. The same Western forces that have long exploited Africa's natural wealth have not hesitated to withhold weapons from African governments seeking to defend their people. However, like its allies in Niger and Mali, Burkina Faso has refused to kneel. When Western powers attempted to block the flow of arms to Burkina Faso, nations such as China, Russia, Turkey, and Iran stepped in. But relying on foreign suppliers is not true independence. A nation that cannot produce its own weapons will always remain vulnerable to external pressures. Developing a domestic defense industry is not just about manufacturing arms, it is about reclaiming sovereignty. This is precisely why imperialist powers are desperate to maintain military bases in the Sahel and keep control over the region. They understand that once Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger achieve energy independence, especially through civil nuclear power, complete strategic autonomy will follow. Western powers anticipated this shift long ago. That is why, in 1996, they pushed African leaders to sign the Pelindaba Treaty, effectively preventing African nations from developing nuclear weapons. By blindly signing this agreement, 51 African countries surrendered their ability to stand on equal footing with global superpowers. If you doubt this, look up whether your country signed it. The betrayal is written in plain text. The Alliance of Sahel States, AES, must consider withdrawing from this agreement when the time is right. Without the ability to deter foreign aggression, Africa cannot break free from imperialism. Some have asked whether Captain Traoré can truly deliver on this ambitious vision. But the real question is not whether he will succeed, it is how this new defense industry will directly benefit the people of Burkina Faso. What does this mean for the future of the nation? How will it reshape the lives of its citizens? These are the questions we must explore further. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the implications of this historic development. If you believe in Africa's right to self-determination, show your support by liking and subscribing. Its existence frequently acts as a covert control mechanism, but Burkina Faso is taking a different approach. For a landlocked country ravaged by years of terrorist insurgency and humanitarian disasters, this is no small accomplishment. However, Burkina Faso is creating a new identity in this furnace of hardship, one that is in line with Pan-Africanist principles of pride, solidarity, and self-determination. The announcement from Prime Minister Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo serves as a wake-up call for the Burkinabe people and their African allies. Speaking from the capital, Ouagadougou, he presented a vision that goes beyond rhetoric. The development of a domestic defense sector that can manufacture weapons, gear, and technologies specifically suited to Burkina Faso's particular security requirements. Ouedraogo said in a determined voice, We will no longer beg for scraps from the tables of foreign powers. We must arm ourselves, defend ourselves, and control our own fate in order to maintain our sovereignty. We will follow this course because it is the people's will. It is impossible to overestimate the importance of this development. This initiative carries enormous significance. Since 2015, Burkina Faso has been engulfed in a brutal conflict with Islamist militants, a war that has claimed thousands of lives, displaced over 2 million people, and left vast territories outside government control. For years, the country depended on France for military aid. Yet this reliance proved both ineffective and degrading. French troops, stationed under the banner of counterterrorism, failed to contain the violence while their presence fueled resentment among a population exhausted by foreign interference. Captain Ibrahim Traoré recognized this harsh reality and wasted no time in taking decisive action after assuming power in September 2022. In February 2023, he expelled French forces from Burkina Faso, placing trust instead in his own people. Now, the nation is taking the next bold step toward true independence, establishing its own military industry. Rather than outsourcing security to foreign capitals, Burkina Faso is now investing in its own capability to arm and train its forces. The goal is clear: to equip the Burkinab military with locally manufactured rifles, drones, and armored vehicles, designed and built by engineers and workers who understand the land, the challenges, and the fight. This move rejects the colonial-era mindset that Africa should always remain a consumer rather than a producer. But perhaps the most groundbreaking aspect of this project is its financing strategy. In a world where African nations are often ensnared by conditional foreign aid and Western debt traps, Burkina Faso is choosing self-sufficiency. Unlike past leaders who turned to the IMF, Paris, or Washington for assistance, Traoré, known for his humble lifestyle and ideological alignment with Thomas Sankara, has made it clear that the country will rely on its own resources. Burkina Faso's wealth, its land, its labor, and most importantly, its gold will fund this initiative. As one of Africa's largest gold producers, the country has long suffered as foreign corporations extract its wealth while its people see little benefit. That is changing under Traoré's leadership. In November 2023, his government approved Burkina Faso's first gold refinery, ensuring that raw gold is processed domestically rather than being exported for others to profit from. This refinery, along with stricter regulations on foreign mining firms, will provide the financial backbone of the military industry. As Traoré boldly stated, "Our gold belongs to us. It will no longer enrich those who see Africa as their playground, it will build our future." Burkina Faso is no longer asking for permission to define its destiny. It is reclaiming its sovereignty, proving that true independence comes not from symbolic declarations, but from the ability to defend, sustain, and empower oneself. In addition to gold, the government is using agricultural resources to strengthen its foundation. By initiating the Presidential Initiative for Food Self-Sufficiency in 2023 and Operation Agro-Pastoral Offensive, Traoré's administration has made food self-sufficiency a top priority. As evidence of the effectiveness of teamwork, these initiatives have already produced around 6 million tons of cereal in 2024. The state is raising the money required to support its military aspirations by rerouting agricultural surpluses and taxing profiteers. Traoré and other ministers and officials have set an example by refusing to accept extravagant wages. While the National Solidarity Fund, which is supported by voluntary donations, aids displaced citizens, and frees up funds for national development, Traoré keeps only his captain's salary. The neo-colonial order is sharply criticized by this self-reliance approach. It demonstrates that African countries do not have to bow down to international donors, whose assistance frequently entails requests for military outposts, austerity measures, or privatization. The Pan-Africanist idea that economic autonomy is the first step toward true independence is shown by Burkina Faso's strategy, a philosophy supported by notable figures such as Sankara himself, Kwame Nkrumah, and Patrice Lumumba. Building a defense sector is more than just a military undertaking. For the inhabitants of Burkina Faso, it is a lifeline. Above all, it promises to improve security in a violently divided country. Along with the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, or VDP, a civilian militia that Traoré has fervently supported, the Burkinabe military will have access to tools made specifically for their requirements, such as drones that can track the activities of insurgents and tough vehicles that are appropriate for the hard environment of the Sahel. Millions will be able to return to their homes as a result of their increased capacity to retake land, defend settlements, and stop the displacement wave. Beyond security, there are significant economic repercussions. Thousands of employment for engineers, technicians, miners, and manufacturing workers will be created by the defense sector. This flood of opportunity might be revolutionary in a nation where poverty and unemployment fuel instability. Young Burkinabe, many of whom have only experienced hardship and war, will find meaning in creating the defense equipment for their country. Universities in the area that are already entrusted with educating the next generation of scientists and inventors will broaden their curricula in order to produce a workforce with the necessary skills to compete globally. Additionally, by retaining revenue domestically, Burkina Faso's government may reinvest in infrastructure, healthcare, and education sectoral areas that have been neglected for a long time due to aid dependency and foreign debt. The foundation for this positive cycle is already being laid by the gold refinery and agricultural projects, guaranteeing that the advantages of progress are shared by everybody, not just a select few. We are fighting today for culture, dignity, and the freedom to live as free men and women, as Traoré has stated. A tangible step toward a Burkina Faso where the people are not only survival but also creators of their own future. This military sector is a pillar of that vision. From the American drones hovering over Somalia and Nigeria to the French bases in Chad and Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso's experience highlights the fear and complacency of many African politicians who still cling to the skirts of Western troops. Foreign countries continue to use the continent as a chessboard, trading its sovereignty for the appearance of security. These soldiers do not defend us. Instead, they maintain our vulnerability and make sure that we continue to be treated as clients, rather than equals. They serve as a reminder of the colonial past and a link that keeps us bound to a system that was created to take advantage of us, rather than to empower us. When he ousted the French, Captain Traoré recognized this and resorted to alliances with countries like Russia and Turkey, which, although not perfect, provide cooperation free from the burden of colonial conceit. His participation in the Sahelian States alliance with Mali and Niger serves as another evidence that the way forward is African unity rather than Western favor. So why do so many leaders not want to do the same? Why do they tremble at the prospect of standing alone and cower behind NATO shields? A poisonous combination of indoctrination and self-interest holds the solution. With their palaces constructed with loans that enslave their people, far too many African heads of state have gotten rich off the scraps of Western handouts. They ignore the savagery of their own reliance and repeat the imperialist narrative, comparing patriots to Traoré militias or tyrants. Such leaders received a scathing scolding from Traoré at the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit. When the imperialists tug on our strings, African leaders of state must quit dancing like marionettes. Every president and prime minister who continues to allow Western troops on African soil should be haunted by what he said. Foreign forces create instability and animosity rather than promoting peace. French troops were unable to put an end to the rebellion in Burkina Faso, but their withdrawal has sparked a national awakening throughout the continent, from Mali to the Central African Republic, where countries that have rejected Western military domination are regaining their might. This is an important lesson for African leaders. Our security must be created inside using our own hands, our own resources, and our own determination. It cannot be outsourced. The adventure of Burkina Faso is far from over. There will be many technical, budgetary, and geopolitical obstacles in the way of achieving military self-sufficiency. The country's infrastructure needs to keep up with its aspirations, and the Islamist menace is still a serious threat. However, Burkina Faso is demonstrating that the impossible is only a matter of will under the leadership of Traoré. This is a Pan-African narrative, not just a Burkinabe one, and it serves as a rallying cry for a continent that has been taught for far too long that it is incapable of supporting itself. Burkina Faso shines as a ray of light as the sun sets over the Sahel, illuminating a region that is damaged yet unbowed with golden hues. Its defense sector is more than just a manufacturing facility. It is a representation of what Africa may accomplish if it has the courage to dream outside of colonial frameworks. Take attention, leaders of this continent. The time for building has begun, and the time for begging is past. Additionally, the people of Burkina Faso are demonstrating for us how to accomplish it. Before we wrap up, we must mention that a familiar shadow looms big over the great expanse of our wonderful continent. From the sunburned sands of the Sahel to the verdant forests of Central Africa, the West, led by nations like France, the United States, and their NATO allies, continues to station troops on African soil under the pretext of cooperation and security assistance. The stated goals of these military operations are to fight terrorism and stabilize unstable states. Beneath this outward show of benevolence, however, is a harsh reality. A neo-colonial order that continues to loot Africa's wealth while supporting dishonest politicians that act as willing puppets. However, a new breed of unyielding leaders, including as Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré, are driving change by daring to rewrite history and regain Africa's sovereignty. For many years, the West has used lofty propaganda to defend its military presence in Africa. French forces, as part of Operation Barkhane, were sent to the Sahel to combat jihadist terrorists associated with the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. In the meantime, the U.S. claims to protect international security by maintaining outposts like Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. These initiatives appear to be a kind intervention on paper, but when the layers are removed, the reality shows. African countries frequently pay the price in blood and treasure as a result of these operations, which frequently work as a Trojan horse for resource exploitation and geopolitical domination. Consider France, a country whose former colonies are still under the influence of its colonial past. Through the CFA franc, a currency that links 14 African nations to the French treasury and ensures a constant flow of cash back to Europe, Paris has maintained a stranglehold over African economies even after colonial rule officially ended in the 1960s. French military have remained in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Chad. Administration became more assertive, and Mali's insurgency deteriorated under French supervision. This massive theft involves the United States too. Founded in 2007, Africa Command asserts that its mission is to combat violent extremism and advance regional security. However, the continent's resource hotspots correlate suspiciously with its extensive network of bases, which includes over 29 confirmed outposts. The American military presence frequently trumps the interests of multinational corporations, from the oil resources of Nigeria to the cobalt mines of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. While U.S. drones flew over uranium-rich Nigeria, the locals continued to live in poverty, their skies humming with foreign machinery, as their politicians made unfair agreements. For far too long, Africa's vast wealth has been siphoned away under the guise of military partnerships and economic cooperation. But this exploitation is not solely the work of foreign powers. It thrives because of an insidious partnership with Africa's own elite, a class of corrupt leaders who trade their nation's sovereignty for personal gain. A prime example of this betrayal was Blaise Compaoré, who ruled Burkina Faso for 27 years before being ousted in 2014. A staunch ally of France, Compaoré stood by as foreign corporations looted Burkina Faso's gold and cotton, leaving his people in deep poverty. Similarly, Niger's uranium wealth never benefited its citizens, even as successive governments allowed American military bases to be established on its soil. These Western-backed regimes have long served as gatekeepers, ensuring Africa remains an open field for exploitation under the pretext of security partnerships. But change is underway. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 37-year-old revolutionary, emerged as a force determined to rewrite Burkina Faso's story. In September 2022, he led a successful coup against a government that had failed to stop the advance of Islamist insurgents. With experience as a peacekeeper in Mali and a veteran of counterterrorism operations in northern Burkina Faso, Traoré was not just another political figure, he was a soldier with a mission to restore his country's dignity and break free from the chains of neocolonialism. Since taking power, Traoré has wasted no time dismantling the old system. In February 2023, he expelled French military forces, putting an end to a decades-long foreign presence that had failed to bring true stability. By January 2025, standing before an electrified crowd, he declared, "We must decolonize our minds." His words resonated deeply with a generation weary of foreign control. His defiance has ignited a wave of anti-imperialist sentiment across Africa, a movement that is now seeing French forces pushed out of Mali, Niger, and even Côte d'Ivoire. But Traoré is not just about words, his actions speak even louder. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso has turned eastward, forging alliances with nations like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela, countries that, despite their own complexities, offer an alternative to Western dominance. Russian security forces have replaced French troops in the fight against insurgents, and new trade deals are ensuring that Burkina Faso's resources serve its people rather than being extracted for foreign profit. One of Traoré's most significant moves has been empowering ordinary Burkinabe to take part in their country's defense. He spearheaded the large-scale recruitment of citizen volunteers into the Volontaires pour la Défense de la Patrie, secondly VDP, an initiative that has armed everyday people with the means to protect their homeland. This shift marks a sharp departure from the long-standing dependency on foreign military saviors. Traoré's growing influence as a Pan-African icon was evident on January 7, 2025, when he received a standing ovation at Ghana's Black Star Square during President John Mahama's inauguration. Clad in military fatigues, a pistol holstered at his side, Traoré stood as a symbol of defiance, embodying the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader assassinated in 1987 for daring to challenge the same oppressive forces Traoré now confronts. Yet, the West is not retreating quietly. France, desperate to reclaim its influence, has taken offense to the shifting tide. President Emmanuel Macron's recent complaints that African leaders are ungrateful for France's efforts reveal the arrogance that has long defined Western policy on the continent. Meanwhile, the United States has issued thinly veiled threats to cut security assistance to any African nation that dares to stray from its influence. But these threats no longer hold the same weight. We may be suffering now, but at least it's our suffering, not theirs, a young Burkinabe remarked in Ouagadougou. Traoré is not fighting this battle alone. His calls for sovereignty echo across the Sahel. In Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta has expelled French troops and aligned with the Alliance des États du Sahel, AES, a growing coalition against foreign domination. In Niger, General Abdourahmane Chiani has taken control of the country's uranium industry and removed American military bases. Even Côte d'Ivoire, a longtime ally of France, announced in January 2025 that French troops would be leaving, a decision driven by widespread public outrage over decades of exploitation. From Gabon to Djibouti, Western military outposts still dot the continent, but their days are numbered. Leaders like Ibrahim Traoré are setting fire to the old order, proving that Africa's destiny belongs in African hands. A new chapter is being written, one in which the continent's resources are no longer drained for the benefit of outsiders, but instead fuel a future where Africa stands tall, united, and sovereign. Join us in this vital conversation about Africa's future. By engaging in discussions and staying informed, you become part of a movement that aims to reshape global perceptions of the continent. Subscribe, share, and let's work together to highlight Africa's strength and potential on the world stage. Thank you for viewing.